Hello everyone, thanks for joining us on The World Now. We'll begin here in Africa, where tension is reportedly escalating between Algeria and Mali over allegations of interference by Algeria in Mali's internal affairs. The rift was allegedly sparked by comments from Algeria's Foreign Minister Ahmed Attaf, who opposed Mali's plans to reclassify certain northern separatist groups as terrorist organizations. They include signatories of the 2015 Algiers Agreement. Algeria's foreign minister says the groups should remain key interlocutors in peace negotiations, maintaining that a military solution is not the answer. Mali, however, perceives the statements as an intrusion on its sovereignty. Both nations are now divided on how to address the conflict in northern Mali. Algeria is advocating dialogue, while Mali prefers military action. For more on the conflict over security matters between Algeria and Mali, global affairs analyst Amuda Musibodi joins me live from Ibadan, the Oyo state capital. Thanks for joining us on The World Now. Mali plans to reclassify certain northern separatist groups, including signatories of the 2015 Algiers Agreement, as terrorist organizations. But Algeria thinks they are key stakeholders in peace negotiations. What do you consider the potential implication of this sharp difference in approach on security in the region and the already complex relationship between both countries?
Thank you so much for having me. First, we have to take a background into the role of Algeria in this crisis when it broke out circa 2011-2012. Algeria has been seen as a regional superpower within the Sahel. And even foundations on conflict resolution have seen Algeria as a major power broker in this situation. So we've seen how Algeria has then transcended to become a major player in this. Now, unfortunately, Algeria also has in its population Tuaregs who are, the hub of the conflict in northern Mali. You have Tuaregs in southern Algeria. So it means that whatever happens to the Tuaregs in northern Mali could have a ripple effect on what happens in southern Algeria. And because of the proximity of the two countries, there could be a spillover. Now, with the defeat of the Gaddafi administration, some of these Tuaregs came back to Mali, and we have this kind of crisis we have at the moment. Now, the unfortunate thing is, with the bad blood that has been brewed between the two parties, it's quite unfortunate that the regional crisis may spill out of control. Now, if with what we have at the moment, Mali goes for the all-stock which it decided to go for, then we may have some of these Tuaregs spilling into Algeria. Don't forget that in July, the Tuaregs who attacked the Malian army and Wagner brothers were said to have come, almost from the Algerian border. And that tells you of how porous this could be, and with the tendency for Algeria to also possibly be having, terrorism to deal with within its own border. So it's a complex crisis. It could spill beyond Algeria and Mali. It could spill across the Sahel, and with the breakdown of the 2015 Accord, I think that we may be dealing with something bigger than we expect.
Absolutely. We saw earlier in 2023 the leader of the Malian junta declaring the establishment of a direct inter-Malian dialogue to prioritize what they called national ownership of the peace process. What we're seeing now perhaps is the revocation of the Algiers Agreement. I'm wondering what you think would happen as a result of this, especially now that the juntas are saying some of the signatories are now known terrorists.
Definitely. Don't forget that even among the Tuaregs, there's been this argument that the Islamic fundamentalists have taken over the agitation of the Tuaregs, and now it's become more of Islamic or what we call religious extremism and fundamentalism. With what we have, Al-Qaeda is involved already. We have, the Islamic State is also involved, and so this has transcended Tuareg, self-agitation, as we may want to call it, but it has, transcended to full-scale terrorism. And the military junta in Mali is saying that, hey, we can no longer stick to these agreements, given that some of the players in league have not been, they've not done well. One would have expected that Algeria, for instance, would have persuaded the leader of Al-Qaeda, and of course some of the Tuaregs, being a major peace broker, to stand down. But we have not seen that play out. We've seen intensified attacks, even from the Tuaregs, as we saw in July 2024. We've also seen reprisals from the Malian army. So there's been no confidence building on either side. So the Malian junta definitely, again, you must not forget the role of the whole the French government in all of this, and how they are trying to say, hey, we want to be free of Western domination, and now Russia is in the free. Again, I must also say this, that the relation between Russia as well and Algeria transcends a lot of years. In fact, it goes back to the Algerian independence movement. And now Algeria is also careful not to dampen its relationship with Russia on one side. But then Mali is also riding on the quest of this newfound love with Russia to exert itself. These are the issues. And if you want to unpack all of them, the implication of it all will be that terrorism in Mali may not reduce. The military approach may be the way to go. But then if you say you want to use the carrot approach, how well has it fared in the last 12 years? How well has the carrot approach fared? We've seen renewed attacks from these terrorists, in northern Mali. So if Algeria will play a peace broker role, how well has Algeria fared? As far as I'm concerned, I think I will score Algeria 20%. And the Malian junta has a duty to protect its internal security. And I think that's what they are trying to do. However, the implications, which definitely will be enormous. But I feel that they are trying to protect its, internal security.
Yes, we've seen both nations holding fundamentally opposing views on how to address the conflict in northern Mali. Algeria is advocating for dialogue. Mali is saying, you know what, it has to be military action. What role do you see the UN or even the African Union? Mali is no longer with ECOWAS, and I don't think ECOWAS even has the reach to appease any country in northern Africa. But what role do you see these other international organizations play in getting both neighboring countries on the same side in the fight against terrorism?
First, the AU has a moral burden, which is that the AU itself is seen as being westernized. And so the role it's going to play here will be tainted badly by the military junta in Mali. Now, talk about the US. We know that the Security Council is the strongest and the most powerful arm of the United Nations. Now, that same Security Council has Russia, which is a major player in all of this. But what I want all these international organizations to do is see a way of impressing it on both sides. Now, we cannot also totally obliterate the need for the carrot approach. Why we cannot also totally obliterate the need for the stick approach. So the two can, you don't necessarily have to be mutually exclusive. We can have the two run side by side. And every party to the agreement must stick to the agreement. That's where the United Nations, for instance, must come in. The Security Council must ensure that every agreement signed by all the parties involved must be strictly adhered to. There are international laws and international rules on this. And when this is done, we may have a reduction in the violence and the crisis and the possible humanitarian crisis that we may have on our end to this issue spill out of control.
Good place to leave it. Global Affairs Analyst Abada Musugudi, thank you so much for talking to us.
Thank you for having me.